Efforts underway to extinguish a blaze at the Rhodes Memorial in Cape Town. The fire is said to be spreading towards UCT. Hikers within the area are being asked to evacuate immediately. Now, for more on this is our reporter Ronald Masinda, who is at the scene. Good afternoon once again, Ronald. Are there any properties in the area that are under threat? It looks like in our visuals now that there seems to be a bit more damage that's being caused.
Yes, indeed, Morena. Well, the fire has become a lot worse and a lot worse than expected. This is one of the properties that has been set alight. We're also seeing a windmill just to our right, also completely cut down. Firefighters have been working around the clock trying to extinguish this blaze, but we're also hearing reports of firefighters also injured while on duty. We will get official confirmation from the city's fire and rescue service. But what we can also tell you is that quite a number of other properties seem to also be set alight. We're also hearing reports of vehicles, of hikers also gutted during the fire. We also heard, Murana, earlier on at UCT, students have been evacuated. We're also not too far from one of the residents at UCT, where a number of students were also evacuated as the blaze has moved from Rhodes Memorial into the areas here near UCT and near Mowbray. We are seeing fire services working around the clock. We're seeing several vehicles and choppers also flying, carrying water bombs to try and extinguish the fire. The city's fire rescue service is yet to give us official confirmation as to how many people could have been injured or could have suffered any sort of injuries during the fire. But what we can tell you is that the fire has certainly caused a lot of damage, especially where we are, Morena, where the road near the M3 has been completely closed. We were allowed to come here, given a warning that the fire is really a strong one. The city has since issued a press release saying that the city's Disaster Risk Management Center is closely monitoring the fire, and at this stage there is no cause to evacuate, but we ask that residents please adhere to the following. Close all windows and doors to prevent draft and reduce heat, and that is just one of the things that the city is also warning. We're also seeing another property to our right that is also completely gutted by the fire. Rescue services team are still here trying to extinguish the blaze. Seems to have spread quite far and wide, not only in Rhodes Memorial, where we reported earlier in our previous crossing, but also now it has entered quite a number of residential areas, Morena. But firefighters here are optimistic that they could try and extinguish the blaze later today, but at this stage things are looking rather difficult in terms of trying to distinguish this, to extinguish this blaze. But a lot of smoke, Morena. We also can't really breathe under the smoke, but we will try and continue providing the viewers updates.
All right, Ronald, I'm going to ask that you and, of course, your camera operator make sure that you are within safe distance from the fire so that, of course, we don't have you affected by that incident. But if you can tell us, since that press release had come out from the city, Ronald, has nothing been said? Have no officials made their way there? Have they just left it at, we're monitoring the situation?
I think initially when I spoke to the spokesperson, Jermaine Carlson, he was of the view that, you know, the fire didn't look as bad as it seems, but he's since been asked to be on his way to try and address the media, because there are a lot of questions, especially around firefighters who have been injured. We are seeing quite a lot of pictures of them laying on the ground following their work here. But we also want to hear more in terms of the students, because quite a lot of student residential areas have been affected. We're seeing quite a lot of them evacuated. We also saw visuals of UCT also on fire earlier on. So a lot is happening in terms of how this fire has managed to destroy so many properties. But we are yet to get official confirmation as to just how bad this place has really affected, especially many residents who live here near this area.
Okay, so we know that there is some sort of evacuation taking place. Ronald, do we know where residents around that area who, of course, are having their property damaged by this fire are going to be going?
So unfortunately, we weren't able to catch up with the residents, given that traffic has also been brought to a standstill on our way here. We also struggled to get in terms of bringing these visuals, but many roads are closed. We want to hear from residents. We will try by our utmost to travel far and wide to see if there are any residents still within this area. But several properties, Morena, are completely gutted, and it seems like there are more than just properties. There are also vehicles and also places of business which are affected. Earlier on, we also reported that the tea room at Rhodes Memorial was also gutted during the blaze, but at that stage, that only seemed to be the only sort of damage to property. We're also hearing reports of vehicles damaged near this area, but ever since then, we haven't seen any hikers. People are in and around this vicinity. The M3 is completely closed, and several roads leading to this direction near UCT are also closed, given the devastating impact this blaze has caused.
You mentioned earlier, Ronald, in our previous crossing that fires like this are prevalent around this time of year. Is this something that the city is prepared for? Do they ensure that they are prepared for it? Because obviously this is not something new to them.
Certainly nothing new, and many of these fires tend to also have a devastating impact on people living in informal settlements here in Cape Town. Many of these fires, even though it's quite prevalent, and you can actually also see the wind in the background, it's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to put out this fire, because there's such strong winds, and the firefighters have been battling for hours, in fact since 9:15. But coming back to your question, I don't think anyone can really prepare for a fire, Morena, but city officials are certainly confident that they have the mechanisms in place in terms of the workforce to try and put out these fires. But many of them are quite common, especially in informal settlements, where a lot of people who live in densely populated areas tend to be under fire, in terms of maybe someone who has basically been putting on a stove and forgot to switch it off. This is quite common, and we've heard of several deaths only this past week alone in Delft and in parts of Khayelitsha of these fires. But here in Table Mountain, under my recollection, the last fire that I really witnessed was last year, and it didn't have any, it wasn't even any near this sort of fire. It wasn't even similar in terms of its devastating effect, because this one is probably one of the worst fires that I've certainly ever witnessed in many years.
Just before I let you go, Ronald, you mentioned that there are firefighters who have been injured as they've been on duty trying to deal with that fire. Do we know if they've received any medical attention?
So from the footage that we saw, Morena, a lot of them were camped outside Groote Schuur Hospital, which is also not too far from here, but a 5 minutes drive from here. But as you can see in the background, we continue giving you rolling visuals of firefighters packing up. They will possibly be moving to other parts of this area, trying to extinguish this place. I'm going to try my best, Morena, and maybe just get a quick word from one of them. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. Could you please just provide, you are live on eNCA. Sorry, you are live on eNCA. Can you just give us clarity of how many fires? Can you, okay, so we've been referred to this man? All right, okay. Firefighters are not allowed to speak to us. We respect that, Morena. But we will be speaking to Jermaine Carroll, so who is a spokesperson, as that man rightly alluded to. I'm going to ask my colleague Asana just to move aside to allow the firefighter to move past this, because it is quite a busy day for them. There's also not only just city firefighters, but also quite a number of voluntary organizations also assisting, beefing up rescue efforts, given the devastating impact this fire is causing. We're also hearing reports of a number of properties that are completely gutted. We will be traveling far and wide just to see the devastating impact that this fire has had on this area near Rhodes Memorial.